right, so let's do our next technique. This one is really cool. So you might have to watch this video a couple times for it to sink in. That's okay. I didn't get it at first either. So what we're gonna talk about next is extended dominance. So when doing this, what we're gonna try to do is always consider the target. And basically the use of this technique is to delay the arrival to that target, or to make this tension that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and finally does resolve when we get to our target. And in our case, our target is going to be C. So how can we get to C? Well, we already know we can do 5, 7, 1. All right, what if I did the 5 of 5 to 1? And then the 5 of 5 to 1, and just keep kind of reverse engineering it backwards till we see how far we want to go, and then rewind it and go in the right way, like we've always talked about, going clockwise around the map. So basically what I'm going to do is use dominant 7 chords from C backwards as far as we can go, and then play the progression in that reverse order so you can hear what it sounds like. So we're just going to follow the circle of fifths. All right, we're going to go C, the 5 of that is G, the 5 of that is D, the 5 of D is A, so we're going counterclockwise. The 5 of A is E, and the 5 of E is B. The 5 of B would be F sharp, that's on our map, so we're going to stop there. And if I play that progression, now it's going to become a circle of fourths, because we're going the other way. It's going to sound like this. Really cool. Like your ear is constantly recalibrated to where you're at, and then where you're going becomes something else, and then where you're going after that becomes something else. So we've now delayed our arrival to the 1 chord through the use of extended dominance. Let's hear it one more time. B7. Really cool technique to use, all right? And one of the reasons that works is because it does extend that arrival to our target. It does create and build this tension. But another reason that it works really well relates back to one of our other techniques of considering the bass. So we've had the bass detector on the whole time, and as we've been doing this, maybe you've noticed, it's been accumulating all of these fourths and fifths all in a row. So B to E, that's a fourth. E to A, that's a fourth movement in the bass. E to D, another one, and then another one, and then another one. So we have this really, really cool consecutive buildup of fifths and fourths in the bass, inadvertently, just by accident, when we're using these extended dominants. So that's kind of relating an old technique to this newer technique, and one of the reasons that it works. Let's relate another technique that we talked about, substitutions, to this current technique. So when we did substitutions earlier, we talked about neighboring chords within the circle of the region that you're hanging out in as a substitute for the chord that you originally used. All right. So for us to do that here, we're going to have to use the complete map. It's going to get a little clustered. Don't freak out. I'll walk you through it. So the complete map on, you can see all the different possibilities harmonically that we have in the key of C, and writing or reharmonizing in that key. So we had B, E, A, D, G, C. So let's use substitutions for the 5 chords. Let's use what are called sub-5s. So I'll start with the B that we just talked about. And instead of going to E, I'm going to use the substitution of E, which we talked about earlier, is down here in the circle, which in our case is B flat. All right, so we're going to go B, B flat. We're not going to go back to E. We're just going to keep that as a substitution. We're going to replace E with B. So what we're going to do is constantly alternate the original extended dominant chord to a sub-5, and then the original extended dominant chord to a sub-5. And we're just going to keep ping-ponging back and forth. All right, so that's going to look and sound like this. We're going to go the original extended dominant chord that we had, B7, and we're going to substitute what would have been E out for its sub-5. And then we're going to keep the A that we went to, and then substitute that next chord out, D7, with its sub-5. And then we're going to keep the original extended dominant chord where it was, before eventually. Let's hear that one more time, because that was really cool. So all right, we have B, Look at all the stepwise movement we've collected consecutively. We have 4 in a row right now. And there's our 5th. And then we resolve to the 1 chord, right? So let's do it the other way. I'll start with a sub 5 and do the same exact movement, same exact clockwork movement around, same technique. Now instead of our original extended dominant sub 5, original extended dominant sub 5, we're gonna go sub 5, original extended dominant sub 5. We're just gonna flip the order around. We're still gonna alternate though, and that's gonna give us more stepwise movement in the bass. So instead of starting with B7 and starting the alternating pattern, I'm gonna start with its sub F7, and then E, E flat, D, D flat, C. So that's created this really cool chromatic movement within the bass, all right? And also used our extended dominant technique that we talked about at the same time. So with this technique of extended dominance and interpolating that with the other technique of substitution, we also inadvertently touch on that cool technique of considering the bass, or getting cool bass lines, stepwise movement, or 5th or 4th movement in the bass. So we have like 3 awesome techniques coming together here just by considering extended dominance. So I know that was kind of a lot to kind of like throw at you guys all at once. So if you think like you need to watch the video again, by all means do so. Like I said, it's not something that might sink in right away. But just keep in mind fundamentally what you're doing here is extending the arrival to the target and creating more and more tension that builds and releases before you get there through the use of extended dominance, and also borrowing from other techniques like substituting and cool bass line movement in the process.